Hey, Linz.
Hey, Dee.
It's that time again.
Who is your neighbor?
Who is your neighbor?
We love this episode.
Yeah, we do.
Every single time. Why do we love it, Dee?
Because it's people's stories.
It is.
Which means it's people.
It's real people.
Yeah.
And their real life. And their real stories. And the things that have really happened to them. And their real vulnerability and courage to be able to share. And it is just, every time, it is just like, oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It takes everything we've talked about previously and just puts a face to it and meaning.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's absolutely necessary, I think, for what we do. We can talk about these orgs all day long, but if we are not sharing the stories of the people that they are partnering with, we have missed it.
Yeah.
We have missed it. So,
And we have two today that
yeah.
we're so excited for you to hear.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be so good. Okay.
In our last episode, we heard from Amy Ard with Motherhood Beyond Bars, who graciously took some time to make us aware of many of the realities faced by pregnant women who happen to be incarcerated. We learned how natural bonds are broken as infants are removed from their mothers as soon as 2 hours after birth, and mothers are returned to prisons 24 to 48 hours after delivery. We heard stories of the complexities of finding a caregiver to claim and properly care for the child while the mother is incarcerated. We learned about the cycles and generational patterns often repeated as incarceration is experienced by generation after generation within each family.
Did you want to say a third generation there?
You know, I think I will. Generation after generation after generation for those first season listeners. You know it. And we were educated about how children are 5 times more likely to end up in foster care if their mother is arrested versus if their father is arrested. So interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
So to you, all of that may seem like just a bunch of statistics, and figures. But behind these statements are real people, and these people are our neighbors.
Absolutely. This is story time, where we get to hear from the humans who have experienced mothering from behind bars. These folks really live in our neighborhood, which just so happens to be in North Georgia. But you have people around you who are just like them in your neighborhood.
You sat with these women. What were your expectations going in?
Yeah.
Versus what you went away with or what really happened?
So, first of all, my personality is every time I go to meet with someone new, which that is all that we do on this podcast,
basically,
is we go meet new people and we ask them their story, whether they're the person who founded a nonprofit or an organization or a people serving group or a volunteer with them or the people they partner with. Like, all we do is go ask people stories. So my personality, when I first come in touch with someone new for the first time, I am having every regret known to man. I am like dying on the inside, thinking I'm going to vomit, so nervous. Worst case scenarios are in and out of my head. Yeah. And the second I meet them and sit with them, I'm like, this is where I thrive. Mm-hmm. But I would never be able to do it without facing that thing that makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, okay. Scenario, you're about to meet some women who have been incarcerated. What do you think's going to happen? I'm like, oh God, they're going to be hardened criminals. These are they dangerous?
Yeah.
You don't know.
Right.
You freaking don't know. Mm-hmm. That's why we named the podcast this, because Lindsay knows nothing. And you have all these fears and these prejudgments that I'm literally working every day to change the way that I am thinking about things.
Yeah.
And it still happens, especially in moments where I'm feeling fearful or insecure, which is every time I have to meet someone new for the first time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who I'm meeting. I'm like, thinking that everything bad that could happen is about to happen.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm about to meet people who have been incarcerated and hear their story. So I am just throwing this out there because I'm an idiot and I'm trying to be really honest about my process.
Yeah.
Because I also want to change the way I do things.
Yeah. I don't think you're an idiot.
I'm an idiot.
You're not an idiot.
So dumb.
No. And I think all of us can relate. Like, I'm sure everyone that's listening is saying, you're not an idiot, because that's exactly how we would feel. And you have the courage to sit across the table and ask questions, which is really hard.
It's freaking hard.
But you love it once you start doing it.
I love it. It's so good. So, and that's exactly what happened is I got to meet both of these women. Hayley came in and we have video of her. And then Drew, I got to talk to on the phone. And they both were absolutely, I don't even know how to say it, mind-blowing. They are brilliant. They are so self-aware. They have experienced more in life than I could even dream of. They have overcome things I can't even fathom. They're just incredible. So I'm really excited for everybody to hear how this is about to go down.
It's about to go down. Did you want to say anything about Hayley before we push play?
Let's just let Hayley tell her story.
Sounds good.
I will say she is currently working with Motherhood Beyond Bars.
Wow.
So she has the experience of being served by them, partnered with them, and then now she's doing the thing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So let's hear Hayley's story.
Okay.
My name's Hayley Ryder. I'm from Forsyth County originally. I was born and raised there. I lived there for 25 years.
Okay.
I have a beautiful family, a mom and a dad, 2 sisters, and I lived a great life. Upbringing, perfect. I mean, by the books, couldn't have been better. I'm very fortunate for that. In my adulthood, was assaulted by a person who is now in prison and was charged with many things. And that led to some drug use for me in my form of coping. I had no coping skills, so that was how I coped. Unfortunately, I had dabbled and then finally found my, preferred methods and paths, unfortunately, and fell into a dark, deep rabbit hole of drug use. Eventually that led to drug sales. Not to support my habit at that point, because supporting my habit was easy for me. But I started selling, and that was the worst thing that's ever happened. The worst thing I've ever done. But I'm responsible for it. I know what I was doing. It was clear. My house was raided by the police. I was arrested. I had never previously been in trouble, not even so much as a speeding ticket. So this is all a very new process to me. Being arrested and put into the system the way I was shell shock. It was super crazy and very unfamiliar, which was probably the hardest part of it all because you don't know what's happening to you and you're in the middle of it. I mean, you're very much so there. So I was arrested. I was charged. But I was in the middle of COVID. So there was a huge pandemic going on. This really affected how courts moved and the process that I was about to begin. I had not been convicted, but I was charged. So I was not convicted for 10 months, but I was held in, an institution during that time.
You were incarcerated.
I was incarcerated without being convicted. In my head, I had it that I would plead not guilty for some reason, because I was unfamiliar with the process. When the time came for me to face these charges, I quickly realized that I was guilty, and I did do what I was being accused of. So I pled guilty, and this was after multiple attempts at rehabilitation. Other avenues of help were offered, and I pretty much had a middle finger up to everything that was offered. Yeah. Unfortunately, I just wanted to go home, and I wanted to do things my way. That's not how it works, though. So I pled guilty. I was released for a brief amount of time before that, in which I went back to my fiance. We just got engaged recently, but we have 3 kids, and now we have 3 kids. At the time, we only had 2. So I'm released. I'm out on bond, and I'm hurt. I'm hurting. And I'm searching for a way to get out of this, and I can't find anything. And then I'm convicted. My court date comes, and I'm guilty. And the judge was not so lenient with me, very likely because I didn't deserve any leniency, because I had such a bad attitude about any other avenue we could have taken here. So I was sentenced to prison. This is coming from a person who grew up in a beautiful house and a family, and we go to church and everything's fine. So it was very new to me. And no experience with this. So I'm put in prison, and while I'm in prison, I go into diagnostics, which is the starting point for every female prisoner in Georgia. You go through a diagnostic program, which decides which prison you'll go to, what security level you're going to be. They give you an idea of how long your sentence will be. And I'd been there 1 week, and the big head honcho guy came and pulled me out, and he said, "You're getting kicked out of prison." And I said, "What do you mean? You know, what did I do now?" Because obviously I was not behaving in prison either yet at the time. They take me to medical, and they said, "Did you know you were pregnant?" And I said, "No, I didn't know that I was pregnant. It was not a planned thing for us. It was very chance." I mean, you look at a calendar now and you're like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But I was pregnant, and they kicked me out of this level 5 maximum security, everybody has to go here type prison.
Yeah.
They put me in a van, and they took me to a medical facility, and they started monitoring my pregnancy. And that's where Motherhood Beyond Bars came in. I got an email from Amy, and I had no idea who this person was. I didn't necessarily even know how they found me. One of the other women I was in there with had mentioned it, that there was this company. She called them a company, and they're so much more than a company at this point. But at the time, she said company, and they'll help you. They will give your family a car seat for your baby. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the fact that I'm pregnant. I mean, you know, so it's all very new. I get an email from Amy saying that she wants to help, and she wants to check in on me. Am I being taken care of? Am I eating okay? What's it like in there? How am I being treated? Are you scared? Do you have a place for your baby to go? Are you going to deliver in prison? Will you be out before then? These types of things. And these were all really big questions. I hadn't even been able to tell my partner that we were expecting again yet. We hadn't been able to talk. Yeah. So I had just told my mom. Then I started speaking with Vanessa, who's now our program director. I was her first participant, and she was my case manager, and I was the first participant she had.
Wow.
So we navigated this together, which is where that really cool view comes in that I get being a participant from the start. The time came along in my pregnancy, and I had found out more about my sentence, that I was going to be very close to being released around the time I delivered.
Wow.
Yeah. So of course you don't want to be away from your newborn baby. That was the worst case scenario, biggest fear anyone could have is I'm going to deliver my newborn baby and be taken away.
Yeah.
That's a bad feeling.
Yeah.
That was my biggest fear. So I started talking to Vanessa. I said, look, I'm a first-time nonviolent offender. I've never done this before. Can you please double check with whoever's in charge of me? Because right now I'm a case file on someone's desk. I am a serial number. That's it. You know, they don't know that I'm a person. I'm having a baby. I have a family. Who cares?
Yeah.
Can you please check in with them, Vanessa, and see if I can go home with the baby? Because, I mean, we're within days there.
Yeah.
And she said, you know, that's not really what we typically do, but I'm gonna see for you. And she did. She partitioned the parole board with the lawyer's help. They put a parole packet together for me. I had references and a plan outlined. Everything good that there was to say about Hayley. At that time, we said it to them.
Yeah.
And the parole board heard us. And
Wow.
That's monumental. They don't have to reply. They don't have to listen to anyone. They are the parole board.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
They listened. And unfortunately, I went into labor early with our baby. Just a few weeks. Everything was fine. She was safe. But we were really crossing some deadlines there. So I did give birth in prison. And I was taken away from my newborn baby after delivering, which was a terrible mess anyways. But, and I was thrown back in this maximum security prison.
The one you originally came from?
When I was originally in, which is a very dangerous and serious prison. And I was at a disadvantage because, I guess to anyone who's never been there, I can explain it as the only form of currency in a maximum security prison during the middle of a pandemic that is short-staffed by guards, is the form of currency is power. It's dangerous there. People are getting hurt every day there. They're actually talking about shutting that prison down right now. They're in the works of it because it is so inefficient. It was disgusting, of course, but it's dangerous more than anything. So me having just given birth put me at a disadvantage. It is something that people will prey on, knowing that you are physically weak.
Yeah.
Or maybe receiving medication that someone who has not just gone through that is receiving. Just all types of things put you at a disadvantage. So I didn't tell anyone when I got there. I got back to the big prison and I kept it a big fat secret. I mean, I'm like hiding my breast milk that I need to express. I am begging Vanessa and MBB and my partner, please get me out. And I'm in the darkest days of my life missing my newborn baby. Gosh, I mean, we had a connection, obviously, and it was just suddenly ripped apart, and I'm in a disgusting cell. I am desperately sad and working hard to get home. And then I get a call from Vanessa who said the parole board signed the papers. We're waiting for your judge to sign off at 5 o'clock, and we did it, and you're going to come home.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm sorry. So they got me home, and my partner picked me up with our newborn baby that he had picked up from the hospital.
How long were y'all apart?
We were apart for 5 days.
5 days.
Yeah. I think it was 5 days. Honestly, it felt like a million.
Yeah.
But he picked me up and I got out. And that was enough to make me want to do good forever.
Yeah.
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 Being able to go home.
Yeah.
I know a lot of our moms in our program don't get that right now. So it's very sad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what was it like being pregnant in prison?
Terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty hard. They did hit, they checked the boxes.
Yeah.
That they had to.
So you did checkups.
I did checkups.
Were those anything irregular about those compared to?
Yeah, we actually did end up finding out later on that my baby and myself have been affected by a disease that's going to be lifelong that they did not screen for. They did not protect us from. So there was some medical negligence.
Yeah.
But in the moment, you're not really able to decipher what's normal and what's not, what care you need.
Right.
And what care you're receiving.
Right.
We don't have Google.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is my third baby. You think you know, but
yeah.
They just didn't run blood screens. And now we are still dealing with it.
Right.
So, yeah. Pregnant in prison also just means you get an extra scoop of mashed potatoes or rice or beans.
So the food quality is the same as?
Yes, it's the same exact.
So you're not getting any extra nutritional value, no nothing.
Well, they check their boxes, right? So there's a calorie intake you're expected to have, and it increases when you're pregnant. So they make sure that you receive an allotted amount of calories.
Okay.
Right? So they check their boxes, but does it mean you're actually getting the nutrients you need as a mother pregnant with a baby? No.
Yeah.
No, of course not,
And probably not super high quality food and fresh food.
No, it's really bad.
So where do you work?
I work at Motherhood Beyond.
Yeah, what do you do there?
I'm a program coordinator there. I started off doing small bits of community service for them.
Yeah.
And I really liked the work. I really enjoyed it. And I think it was because I could relate.
So you get out and stay connected to them.
Yes, they kept track of me.
Yeah.
I didn't know people would care like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my mom. Of course, your mom wants to know how you're doing, right? But there's these people who understand what it's like to re-enter. Re-enter with a newborn baby that you just had. Re-enter and come back to a family that just saw you gone for a long time.
Right.
So they knew what I was going through. They're the only ones. And they might have known it better than I did because I had never done this before.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to have that support.
Yeah.
In fact, necessary.
So as program coordinator, what is that? What does your job entail?
So a lot of this is me playing a supportive role to others. We have case managers who pay attention to all the crazy ins and outs of the days, and sometimes not so crazy. I also have relationships with most all of our families, and they have my phone number saved. They know that I call them twice a month. They know that I call and check in, and we chit-chat first, and then I say, what size diapers can I send you this month? We want to help you. You can depend on that every month. Okay, so don't worry about that. Do you need help with anything else? We help them navigate getting birth certificates and social security cards from the hospital, because as a non-parent with an infant, how do you do that?
Right.
There's no policy or procedure with the state of Georgia to figure these things out. I know a lot of the mothers because I was either with them at one point.
Oh, you're working with people that you were incarcerated with. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of the time, yes, and not every time.
Yeah.
And those other moms, there's just this unsaid understanding. Hey, I've been there, and I know that it's strange for me to ask you about a social security card and if you're doing okay and what reentry is like for you, but I've been there. So we relate. It's unsaid understanding, but the more we get into it, the more it's becoming a said thing.
Right.
That this is part of the process.
Yeah. Okay, and then if you could tell just the general public, our listeners, one thing about any part of it, what would you want them to know?
I would want them to know that, and I'm not just bragging because I work for this company, but Motherhood Beyond Bars is providing real, actual help for these families, these women, and these infants. It's not just this check your box type thing and hope it helps. No, this is specifically tailored to actually helping them.
Right.
It's going to make people successful. We are going to make these mothers have a better time coming home. We're going to reunify families. We're going to change these babies' lives. And they've really nailed it. It's a beautiful thing.
What'd you think, Dee?
I was very touched by her story. And I know we'll talk about other things later, but the thing that I think I was most touched by was just the full cycle of her using what she went through, that she gets now to go back and put all that to with purpose, is what she said. And that even she gets to help women that she knew in prison. Just is such a cool thing. And must be such a full cycle moment for her,
right?
Of helping others.
So good.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, obviously the experience of birthing a child changes you regardless, but to hear her own mistakes, her own errors, the way that she owns them, she is not allowing anyone else to take the blame for anything that she went through, where she probably has plenty of room to. I mean, dude's incarcerated for 20 years for what he did.
Yeah.
She's got room to.
Right.
But she's owning her part in her incarceration.
Yeah.
And she's showing up every day. I mean, chick's got drive. Very inspiring.
Yep.
Next up, we have Drew. Get ready. This one's wild. I mean, they're all wild. That's what I love about people's stories, is they're wild. Yeah. Drew is a single mom, has 2 kiddos, working 2 jobs. She's also in school. Can't even fathom. Yeah. She's also on all these different boards and working with these organizations to write legislation and get bills passed and do all these things for the incarcerated population. So she's just killing it. But the day that I interviewed her was a very chaotic day for Drew. She had kids in the background, which she did tell me about. She was checking out at a store actively, so you get all kinds of sounds. She had just gotten locked out of her house and had to wait on a locksmith to come. Yeah. She's driving in her car. So
real-time interactions here.
And you'll like it because it's like you're there, you're live and in person. And we're getting to hear, the exasperation and the exhaustion in her voice, and also the fight, and also all the things that Drew is feeling. And you'll notice, I don't remember if I already said this or not, but we'll say it again. We'll notice that Drew, at first, she's very uncomfortable with me. She does not know me. We've never met in person before, and this is just a phone call. And as we continue to talk, she livens up and gets I feel like really comfortable. I definitely got really comfortable. And I just love that the longer you sit with somebody and the more questions you ask and the more space you're willing to give them, instead of just trying to bam, 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 get through it as fast as you can and say that you were being a good neighbor today, you actually sit with somebody, the more that she just bloomed. And, you'll get to hear that in her voice. Yeah. So spoiler alert, like Hayley cried and Drew cries too. And I'm sitting there when we don't have it on film like you day. You don't get to watch me cry. But I am like doing my best because I'm having to keep talking to her to like keep it together. So anyway, Drew, get ready. Ready?
Let's do this.
Okay, Drew.
My name is Jessica. My middle name is Drew, and that's the name that I prefer to go by. And there's kind of a little story behind that. Jessica was like it's like a different life for me, right? So I'm a different person now, so I prefer to go by Drew. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. It's really a college town. Had a really good life growing up. I have like zero complaints. Other than my mom wasn't around a lot. She was in the corporate world, so she worked a lot. And my dad worked second shift, so I was alone quite a bit growing up. But as far as like, I lived in a nice neighborhood. I had lots of friends. Parents were great. There was like no abuse or no drugs or anything like that growing up. I lost my mom at 21 years old. She was like my everything. She was my best friend. I just looked up to her because she was like, this go-getter, beautiful, intelligent woman. And all of a sudden, mom passed away. She had a stroke out of nowhere. She was 48 years old. And so we were all taken by surprise. During that same week, I had broke it off with my high school sweetheart. I had actually moved in with my mom. And all within a week. And then plus I had lost my job because I had missed so many days in a row being out with my mom. Yeah, so I went to a childhood friend who had also lost his mom. And I was just like, how do you deal with this tragedy? Like, how do you do this? How are you able to smile? Like, I was just, really interested in wanting to know his trick. He pulled out a bag of heroin, and said, "This is how." So I was like, well, I want to be better. I want to feel okay. So he gave me some, and instantly it was just like euphoria. Like, it just took me to a whole nother place. And for a brief moment, like all my thoughts and worries and cares were just gone. So fell in love with heroin at that moment. Stayed on heroin for several years. I had inherited money from my mom, so I went through that rather quickly. And I didn't want to start doing what other people were doing, where they were like manipulating their family or stealing from their family. So, and I didn't want my dad to see me that way. So I met some people and took off and come to Georgia. Started doing like this really dumb check cashing thing with a lot of people, and was getting a lot of money. And of course I needed it to support my habit. I honestly felt like I would have died if I didn't have it. So I started doing this for several years. I got caught up in some other crazy crap, drug related, and went to jail for 11 months. The judge refused to let me go back to North Carolina. So I had to stay in Georgia. Well, I didn't know anybody but my co-defendants and dope boys. So actually, dope boy actually gave me money for a hotel room, and probably in hopes that I was going to start using again, and because I was his number one customer. But for whatever reason, he looked out for me that moment. Got a hotel room for a week. I met my children's father at that hotel. He was actually in the process of moving and it was staying in a hotel for a couple weeks until his house was ready. So I met him. We ended up staying the night with him and never leaving. I had 2 children. I wasn't using. I was actually sober, and had my children. I had my son, who was 9 now. He was 2 at the time. Then I had a sister. A couple of years go by. There's a knock at the door. Now, mind you, I'm at home mom, just taking care of kids and doing dishes and laundry and cooking and all this good stuff. And there was a knock at the door. It was the Fugitive Task Force. They had a warrant for me. I had been indicted for racketeering for a crime that I had committed in 2009. They didn't indict me until 2016.
Oh my gosh.
So honestly, I kind of felt like, well, I had gotten away with it. A little bit, a small part of me always was looking over my shoulder, you just can't do that and get away with it. But all these years had gone by, and I was thinking, well, maybe I did, maybe my higher power is giving me a second chance because he knows that I've turned my life around. All these different things in my mind keeping me thinking that, it's okay. I got away with it. About 4 months into the jail, I found out that I was pregnant. And
Wow.
this was the day after I had been sentenced to a 5-year prison sentence. Found out I was pregnant the day after I was sentenced. So they hurry up and rushed me out of the county jail. We can't have her here. She's pregnant. Sent me to Learndale State Prison. From there, within 24 hours, I was taken to the pregnancy prison, which is called Helms Medical Facility. Hold one moment. I'm so sorry. Okay, sorry about that. I've actually been locked out of my house and the locksmith just pulled out.
Oh my goodness.
My daughter locked us out. Anyhow, so medical facility Helms. I'm there. Of course, I'm depressed, miserable. Not only am I going to prison, but now I'm faced with having this baby in prison. What am I going to do? 5 years is a long time. And I was worried about the safety of an infant, so I considered adoption. Only if it was an open adoption. So I found a family who agreed to these things. When I met with this family, I told them that there was a very, very small chance that the baby may be biracial. So I wanted them to be very aware that, it's possible their baby could be biracial, and want to make sure there wasn't an issue with them. I had my baby. I was taken from the medical facility. I had preeclampsia. And just to back it up a little bit, they gave us expired prenatal vitamins.
Oh my gosh.
The healthcare was not that great. I saw this doctor who could barely see. He's 89, 90 years old.
Wow.
He's a nice man, but he's too old to be practicing medicine. Anyhow, so they actually also, while I was pregnant too, they got my gallbladder results mixed up with another girl who had an ultrasound the same day. I was having gallbladder attacks, and they got our charts mixed up, and they were giving her medication for gallbladder attacks, and they told me I was fine.
Oh my gosh.
And I was definitely not fine. I ended up having my gallbladder removed about a year and a half later after going through gallbladder attacks every 2 months. Anyhow, so I had my beautiful baby. I got to have 2 hours with her, 2 beautiful, precious little hours. And when I met her, I fell in love with her. So I was taken when it was time to go back to Learndale State Prison. So I was just up and taken. after like day 2, day 3, it wasn't sitting well with my spirit, not having her in my life. And I'm thinking, 5 years in the grand scheme of things, really not that long. Like, it's really not that long. And so day 3 out of the 10-day grace period, I had the deputy warden call the adoption agency and stop my adoption. Before she could even get the call to her, she was actually on her way up to the prison to tell me that my daughter was too dark for their liking, for the family's liking. Those were the exact words. She was too dark for them. And I said, well, that's great, because guess what? We were trying to get in touch with you anyway, because I really want to stop this. So this is not what I want to do anyway. She said, well, I want you to think about this. She said, I'm prepared to give you $500, put $500 on your commissary if you choose one of these other families. And I kind of flipped out a little bit in my head, because I couldn't really tell her how I felt, because at the end of the day, she was going to be around my infant. And I didn't want to make her too angry. She told me that she would have to drop my daughter off at DFACS. She threatened me with DFACS. And I said, well, you do what you have to do. I know that her father will do what he has to do to get her. And he did. It took a year to get her out of DFACS custody, even though he had done absolutely nothing wrong other than be a father.
Wow.
That's not even wrong, right? Like, something natural. He was just a dad. He had to fight for a whole year to get her out of state custody. Didn't get pictures that entire year. I didn't know what was going on. They didn't tell me much of anything. 2 years after that, my other 2 children were taken and placed in DFACS state custody, because their father had been drinking and hit a parked MARTA bus without my children in the car seat outside of my son's school. So he lost my children, and they went to foster care. So now I had 1 out, and then 2 went in. I'm behind bars, I guess you could say, and I'm not able to do much.
Right.
So it was about a year and a half after they were placed in state custody before I was released from prison. So I did a total of 5 years. Literally April 7th, I've been out 1 year. And in this 1 year's time, I went into when I first was released, I went into a women facility, returning citizens. Because I don't have any family here. Like, I didn't have anywhere to go. So I was released April 7th, 2022 to the women's facility. You have to be employed. Not very employable. Coming out with the racketeering on your record.
Yeah.
They look at that racketeering is awful, right? When they think of racketeering, they think of John Gotti,
Yeah.
And they don't think of a girl from the suburbs writing checks to support a heroin addiction. They think of, something Gambino family. Anyhow, started working at Center for Employment Opportunities, which is a organization specifically designed for returning citizens. They only hire people who are currently actively serving a parole or probationary sentence. So this was perfect for me. I actually picked up trash for $10 an hour for about 4 months. Took the MARTA bus to work every day, saved money. Anything I could do for extra money, clean a house. I actually worked on a goat farm for a small time.
Wow.
I love the little goats. It was great. And so anything I could do to get my hands on some money that legally, that would help me get a place, I was down for 100%. Didn't matter what it was. So I saved money. I was able to get a little beater car. And I bought me a Blazer at the Goodwill. And I went online because my passion was inside the prison and is now to help people with substance abuse disorders, to advocate for people who are, unhoused, and just to be the voice for somebody. And then I really wanted to work with the youth, but I haven't gotten there yet, but I will.
Yeah.
And now I got the blazer, went online, did all these fantastic, cool interviews. Landed this awesome, amazing job at PAD, Policing Alternatives Diversions Initiative. I started off as a peer advocate.
Wow.
I've been promoted. Now I'm a care navigator. So now I have my own caseload of 25 people who I work really, really hard for. I'm still in school. Motherhood Beyond Bars helped me get into school.
Wow.
When I was inside the transitional center, they paid my application fee, and I've been in college ever since.
Wow.
I should be graduating next month, so I'll have my first degree. Yeah,
That's
super
awesome.
exciting.
Yeah.
I bought my very first house December 13th of this year, and because nobody would rent to me, it's so crazy. It was easier for me to buy a house, but nobody would rent to me. I had to make either 3.5 times the rent, or because of my criminal record, or just stupid stuff. Because I had 2 kids, this one person would only allow 2 people to occupy the place.
Wow.
So it was, it was so hard for me to rent. Like, I got so many no's. I was so discouraged. I would call Amy up. Amy's like, one more no, it's okay. It's just a no. Like, there's more places. Keep trying. So I bought a house.
That's incredible.
And it feels great. Yeah. Oh my God, it's a little house, but it's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my house. Like, I own it. I've been in complete compliance with my parole. Now on probation. I'm off parole now. And my officer writes character reference letters for me. Like, wow. I never thought I would have an officer write a letter of reference, character reference for me, but he does, and it's cool, right? Like, I can call him up and be like, man, I need you to write another letter. I help out with Living on Purpose ATL, Women in Transition, sit on policy group at the Southern Center for Human Rights. We're working on a law to end solitary confinement.
Wow.
We would like to enforce the Mandela Law, which is nobody should be in solitary confinement after 72 hours because of the effects of mental health, and it's not good to be in solitary that long. So I'm working on that. I'm hoping to help get my very first bill passed. Anything and everything I can do to give back to the community that I once took so much from, I want to be involved with. And then I got my children out of foster care. Like, they kept giving me task after task after task. You got to do this. You got to. All right. And then, okay, I'll do it. I did it. Right. So they're like, okay, now you got to do this. I'm like, okay. And they're like, but okay. I was like, well, I've done everything you've asked. Now what? Now you got to have a home. That was my hardest thing. So I got a home, and I'm like, okay, I got my home. What's up? Can I get my children? No, you have to wait for court. I'm like, well, when's that? 4 more months. I'm like, are you kidding? Well, we want to see you in the house for 4 months. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, fine, you'll see me in this house. I had to prove that all my bills were paid. And like, it was just, they made it extremely difficult. It's as if they didn't believe that I could actually do it.
Wow.
And it just motivated me more.
Right.
Because I really want to represent for the returning citizen population. Like, we're not bad people. We made a mistake and we pay for it. Like, but once you go to prison, it's a life sentence. It's not just for 4 or 5 or 20 years. It is for life. I will forever be labeled. I will forever be judged. I will forever have to prove myself. Forever. For life. But it's okay. It's okay. I've learned to accept that. And I accept the challenge. Like, it's okay. I get it. You're not educated enough to understand what I've been through and what I'm, where I am, who I am today. I get it.
How were you first introduced to Motherhood Beyond Bars?
Oh, I left that out.
No, it's okay.
I left that out. It's because the locksmith was here. Okay. I had a lot going on. They used to play all the time. Oh, dinner's ready. It's Arby's tonight, or it's pizza. Like, oh my God, really? We'd all go running out there and there'd be nothing. So an officer comes to my door and was like, baby shower. And I'm like, ha, 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 go away. They're like, no, seriously, you have a baby shower. I said, okay, I'm not running my fat butt up there just so y'all can laugh at me. And she was like, no, really. Like, I promise you. So I went out there, and it was this woman, beautiful soul, that threw us a baby shower and didn't even know us. For that brief moment, that first time in 8 or 9 months, I felt like a person. Like, I felt like a mother, a human. I wasn't just a number. I felt like a mother for the first time in months.
Wow.
And I fell in love with Amy in that very moment. Like, who does that? Who does that for women they don't even know for their baby? Like, only an amazing person would do that. And then I go to the real prison after I gave birth, and, you know, I'm kind of going through things. I'm a little depressed. And life kind of sucks right now. And they call my name for a postpartum group. And there in this group, I met all these women, some I knew, some I didn't, who had went through the same exact thing I had.
Wow.
And who knew what I was talking about, what I was feeling. And so for like 1 or 2 hours a week, I got to be in a room where I actually felt safe. And I could be vulnerable. Because, you know, you got to keep this tough, you know, this tough facade in prison, like, hey, you know, so nobody messes with you. And that's real. That's not just TV. And for 2 hours a week, I got to, like, let it out, you know?
Wow.
And it was great. Yeah. So, and then Amy motivated me to do things in prison. Like, I'm certified welder, gas metal arc welder. I got my GED in prison. You know, she motivated me to do all these things.
Motherhood Beyond Bars didn't have anything to do with your children. They more helped you personally.
Oh, no. They did that too.
Oh.
So I gave them, I would ask Amy, will you please go check on my children? Like, I'm really worried. I need another pair of eyes on them.
Wow.
And she would go. She would go and she would, like, meet them. She took them Easter baskets. She took my children Christmas presents.
Wow.
My children would have had a Christmas if it wasn't for her. Their daddy was full-blown in active addiction, and I didn't know it.
Oh, God.
She was like, you don't understand. She was great. And then she would call, like, whenever they were in foster care and my children would tell me something. And I would be like, listen, something's not right, you know, or they're not letting me talk to my children. She would call DFACS for me. And I don't know who she knew, but she made it happen. Like,
wow.
She made them, you know, comply and do what they were supposed to do. Yeah, Amy was involved. I'm telling you, she's my mentor. Like, she's a beautiful person. I could go on and on and on. Like, you're reminding me of these little things, but I have stories for days, things that Motherhood Beyond Bars has done for my family alone. They gave me $1,000 towards my closing. That $1,000 made a huge difference in me getting this house. I was, like, literally, like, $1,000 short.
Wow.
So, you know, since they helped me get him in this house, and it was like no strings attached. Like, we want to help you. Like, you're doing so good, and, you know, we want to help you complete this goal. And then when I had my court hearing, she got on that court, and the judge asked her who she was and what capacity she was there for. Man, Amy spoke so well. And that judge respected her and, you know, gave her a pat on the back, like, what you're doing is amazing. And, yeah, like, she spoke for me in court too. I'm not saying that's, you know, that was a make it or break it, but just the fact that and I called her literally 10 minutes before. I said, Amy, my court's not tomorrow, it's today. She said, send me the link. And I sent it to her. She was on there before I was. Wow. Like, she was there for me. She just stopped everything she was doing. So, very, very, my children and I are very, very fortunate to have her in our lives. Like, that baby shower was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Is there anything that you want the general public to know about people who have experienced the things that you have?
There's a person behind this substance abuse. You know what I mean? There's a person behind this mental health. There's a reason. There's something that's happened. People don't just wake up one day and say, I want to be a drug addict. So just don't judge a book by its cover or what paper says about them. Like, get to know the person, because we're so much more than that paper says. We're so much more than the things we've done. You know, we're some of the most talented people I know, or the most educated people I know, have substance abuse disorders, you know? And it's not fair to judge somebody because you don't know what they've been through.
I just feel like I'm speechless. Like, I can't come up with words. And maybe we shouldn't. Like, she said it all.
She said it all.
I just feel like it deserves like this moment of silence. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
space, just
yes.
Try and take it all in. And I mean, you can hear the exhaustion in her voice. Mm-hmm. You can hear how she's just rolling with the punches, and the punches keep coming. Mm-hmm. And you can hear her passion.
Yeah.
And you can hear that she has so much gumption. Like, she's just,
Yeah. I actually wrote down determination in all caps on my notes as I was listening, because at every turn, she just is determined. And that's inspiring.
My gosh. Okay, let's do some major takeaways.
Okay. I have several. One of the things that I think is so important for us to wrap our heads around, and how we can walk in their shoes or attempt to understand, is like thinking about the hurdles that they have to overcome after prison. Like, just hearing Drew talk about trying to rent or getting a job, like, it's virtually or actually impossible. Like, she could not rent. She had to buy a house. And so I think for me, it softens my heart even so much more, hearing the hurdles. And not everybody is determined as she is. You know, I know my personality. I probably would have quit and been a repeat offender and gone to whatever was easier. Which brings up the second thought, is how vital and critical programs like Motherhood Beyond Bars is. Because I think it was, well, both of them, both Hayley and Drew, their sentiment was, I would have been a reoffender if it hadn't been for the support of Motherhood Beyond Bars. And that's just huge.
Massive.
And so just to like visualize Amy showing up at a prison, throwing a baby shower for women that she doesn't know, was the turning point for Drew's success. And it's just so beautiful and important.
I was thinking that too as she was speaking, that it all comes back to this one simple gesture that's like, you know, the skeptic would say, and I will speak for the skeptic because
that's what you are.
I am one. Would say, why have a baby? They can't keep that stuff. They're not going to get to keep the baby in the prison. Why are you having? But the fact that she said, I felt human for the first time.
Yeah.
I felt like a mother for the first time since I'd been incarcerated. That is massive. Absolutely massive.
And we keep saying this, but like, that was her turning point because she felt like a human. It's human to human. It's restoring human dignity.
Yeah.
To people who are in unfortunate situations.
Who are often dehumanized.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's probably one of my major takeaways. We've already talked about it a little bit, but is, you know, when they call them inmate, when they're referred to as a prisoner, that is removing their humanity and replacing it with a label of the thing they have done or the consequences that is their current existence.
Is now you. You
Yes.
have become.
You
so
are.
it is your identity.
Yes. So when we talk, this is something we have learned in this process of talking with Motherhood Beyond Bars, of like, when you refer to someone use language that restores the humanity in someone. Any other big things?
I think my final thing, and this is just a little bit of a reflection in general, but I think it's when you've been touched, helped in a time of need, it compels you to find others and help others in a similar way. And I think that's just part of like human dignity, like what we're talking about. But I feel like it's something repeated that we see when we talk to these amazing people. They have been helped at a point in their lives, and now they just want to give it back. Like they just want to find someone to help too. And that's so beautiful and something that, I want to be like too.
Well, it's crazy because even thinking back to homelessness, all we kept seeing was these homeless people were the most giving. They could never give enough to anyone else who needed it.
Right.
And then now with this, and even in our upcoming episodes with rape response and talking about sexual assault, majority of the people working in that realm, in that field, have had some kind of horrifying experience with sexual assault. So it's crazy how even having these horrible situations happen to you, you are able to take the trauma, heal from it, overcome, and then all you want to do is work in that realm and give it back.
To show others it.
Yeah.
You can heal from it too. You can have power in it. Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about what we're doing too, because we haven't been impacted by a majority of the things that we're talking to these orgs about. And I think these spaces shouldn't be reserved for the people who have had the things happen to them. Like everyone needs to know about this stuff.
Absolutely.
Everyone needs to be educated. Everyone needs to be involved, because if it hasn't happened to you, it's happened to your neighbor.
Yeah.
And how are you loving your neighbor if you have no idea the kinds of things that they've experienced and gone through?
Yeah.
Who's your neighbor? I feel like I could get a tattoo that says, "Who's your neighbor?"
I think you should.
Where should I put it?
Maybe we'll put that as a poll on our Instagram. Let us know where you think Lindsay should get the tattoo.
And am I doing the words, or am I doing like Mr. Rogers' sweater? Yes.
As always, this has been amazing. We want to say thank you to our brilliant guests, Amy, Hayley, Drew, and the team at Motherhood Beyond Bars. You guys are doing good, rich, meaningful work, and we are honored that your story is now a part of our own. And to all the mothers out there who resonate with these episodes, we see you.
We hope that these stories don't just make for a good podcast episode, but lead you into the action of seeking out your neighbor, whether they are potentially headed towards incarceration, currently incarcerated, previously incarcerated, or never incarcerated. Who knows how, to quote Amy, a simple act of kindness might impact their life or yours. Hey, thanks y'all for listening to You Don't Know, a Wayfind Collective podcast. If you feel a connection with the work of Motherhood Beyond Bars and want to partner with them, you can find more info and donate on their website, motherhoodbeyond.org. Wayfind will also be fundraising to support the work of Motherhood Beyond Bars through Season 2, and you can donate directly on our website, wayfindco.com.
Our next episode will be the very first episode of our brand new youth podcast, It Could Be You. This podcast provides a safe and supportive environment that covers issues related to social justice, diversity, and inclusion. Appropriate and helpful for all ages, this space was created to broadly and gently introduce a difficult topic for potential first-time hearers. Our first episode will be on the topic of incarceration. We hope each 20-minute episode encourages listeners to thoughtfully engage with our neighbors and to think critically about the world around us. Friends, it's been good. Until next time.